So, I'm not doing the top 10 best and worst albums of the year this year. I've decided to discontinue it because I haven't listened to too much to really make a full, fair list. And of course, you know, I listen to certain music genres for the most part, so a lot of you might not know who I'm talking about or the song that I'm talking about in general, even though I do cover a bit of, you know, bigger artists and bands. Just some people only want to see the mainstream stuff and all this, and I just can't keep up with that anymore. But I thought of this idea here to kind of go through 10 songs that came out this year that I want to see if I actually think that they are my favorites of the year. Like, just looking at it, like, did I like it, and would it make my list? This isn't necessarily me saying, like, oh, these are some of the worst and best songs that came out. These are just some of the songs I've heard from these bands where I kind of think to myself, is this worth saying it was the best of the year? Like, is this an actual favorite song of mine in 2022, or is it just kind of hovering around and just kind of there, and like I'll go back to it every so often, but maybe not as much as some of the other ones that we are going to see on here. So I guess to start it off, let's just do an obvious one here. One of my favorite bands came back this year. I think they're supposed to have another single out in November, but, you know, as of now, they have the one single out, their big comeback single. They've announced an album already next year. I'm excited, and the lead-off single to this album is a banger. This is why I don't leave the house. You say the coast is good, you won't catch me. The title track to Paramore's upcoming album. I mean, we had been waiting a long time, and when this song came out, you know, I'm not gonna lie, first listen, I was definitely kind of like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about this, but the more and more I listen, the more and more I just love this thing. Like, I don't know what it is. Knowing that it's the kickoff track on the album, I feel like it does its job for doing what it's supposed to do, which is just kind of reel you in to what the rest of the album is going to have to offer. And as for one of my favorites of 2022, I would dare say that it is up there. So next was a band who kind of disappointed with their album last year. I think a lot of people kind of wrote them off because they used to do this thing where they'd mix pop punk and metalcore together so well, but it feels like that's overstayed its welcome. So when A Day to Remember returned with their new song Miracle, they just decided, let's just go straight up metalcore with it. But I'm laying on the right hand right now, to hell with all the and to be honest with you, this is the best thing they've done in a while. Probably the best thing they've done since anything off of Common Courtesy, which is almost 10 years old at this point. I mean, just listening to it, you get a little bit of everything, you know? It keeps the heavy fans happy with some of the heavy riffs, the breakdown, the screaming vocals, and of course the people who are looking for the more rhythmic and melodic stuff, you do get that throughout this as well. Even though it kind of, you know, seems like your typical metalcore song that you would hear nowadays, coming from A Day to Remember and seeing that they are changing their sound and trying to do something different other than being like, okay, what more can we do with this pop punk and metalcore sound? They just kind of shifted and have shown that maybe last record was a bit of a mulligan because they just were so unsure how to continue to grow their sound that now they're kind of completely away from that. They're doing something different. So yeah, Miracle has been one of my favorites of 2022 and probably would be #1 on the list if I was doing it this year, unless something crazy swoops in last minute like Korn did last year with Start the Healing, then A Day to Remember would win. Speaking of Korn, the reason I put The Worst Is On Its Way as one of the songs they released this year is because I really love Start the Healing, which came off the record this year, but was released as a single late last year, so I kind of kept that one off the list. Plus, The Worst Is On Its Way is the most recent single from Korn, and the aesthetic's cool. This is the song that finishes off their most recent album, and, you know, I think it does its job for what it is. As for being one of my favorite of the year, Yeah, you know, I don't really know. It's not that I hate this song. I actually really like this song, but I would prefer Start the Healing or Forgotten, or maybe even a song that's grown on me like Lost in the Grandeur more than I would The Worst Is on Its Way. I mean, yeah, it just gives you a little bit of heavy elements here and there, but for the most part, it's a closing track that does its job and nothing more. Again, that's nothing against Korn. I think it's a great song, but it probably wouldn't make my list in 2022 if I were to make one. Okay, so we do have a band on here that I was never really a fan of, and, you know, I still don't really see the full appeal to now. But when I saw they were coming back right around the same time Paramore was, I was kind of interested because I know this band has taken time in between their records in the past couple of releases that they've had, and like Paramore, it had been a long time since we had heard from them, and they decided to drop this. Pierce the Veil, again, were one of those bands during the whole pop-punk emo thing that was going on back then when I was younger that I could just never get into, as I mentioned earlier. But there's something about this song, the tempo change and doing different things that I kind of wasn't expecting from them. Like, don't get me wrong, the heavy parts didn't throw me off. It was just, I wasn't expecting them to go about doing what they did here. I mean, I guess since it's been so long and the whole pop-punk emo thing has kind of transitioned and evolved into something else, they needed to add some pop elements in there, which is exactly what they did. And for me, this is an okay song. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say I hate it, but I don't absolutely love it. I think I've heard it like twice, and I was kind of just like, yeah, you know, it's cool both times, but nothing fantastic to me. Nothing that I'm like keeping on my playlist or anything. It's just like, you know, if I want to go back and listen to it, I might as well. If the radio decides to play it, which I highly doubt it, it might be too heavy for some radio, then I'll listen to it. You know, I'm not going to sit here and go, ugh, this thing is terrible, turn it off, shut it off. You know, I feel like there would be more songs that would be reserved for the top 10 songs of the year more than this one. So my question for myself when making this was, what Panic at the Disco song should I put on here? Would it be the title track, which, you know, I think would be too obvious that it would make my year-end list. What about Local God? Well, you know, I do kind of like that song, so again, probably an obvious choice. Middle of a Breakup. Actually, don't really like that song. I think it's a bit cringe. So I decided to go with the song, Don't Let the Light Go Out. Who's gonna drive me home tonight? Who's gonna argue till they win? This was one off of the new album that was, again, intriguing and interesting, because with this record, Panic at the Disco sounds like a band again, and instead of a more Frank Sinatra type vibe or a, you know, kind of like play vibe here, we get more of a Queen-esque kind of thing with Brendan Urie and the band in itself, and more of a funkier kind of sound than we're used to hearing from them. And Don't Let the Light Go Out, I think, was the final single that came out before the record was set to release. And, I mean, I was okay with it, I guess, but it just, like, I listen to it now, and, like, nothing, it's still the same from the first time that I've heard it. Like, it's not grown on me, but I've also not been, like, falling out of love with it. And by that I just mean, like, it's still just okay to me. It's one of the blips on the album where, again, if I'm listening through it, I can probably sit down most of the times and just get through the song, go into the next one. But I think when it comes to the singles beforehand, Local God and Viva Las Vengeance are the superior to this single here. So, again, it's one that I'll just kind of say it's meh, not good, but not bad either. A little bit of love goes a pretty long way. Everybody. Weezer's done so much this year that, to be honest with you, I just seem to forget that they're still kind of doing whatever. They've released 3 of their 4 seasons EPs so far. They still got a Winter that's coming out right before Christmas time, so we'll see how that one goes. But this one is off of the first EP that they decided to release, which was Spring. A song that was the one they wanted to highlight. They didn't give it a music video or anything, but it was the radio single that they wanted to put out there. And with this song, you can see why they wanted to do that. And you know what? I'll say, yeah, I think this one would make my list. It'd be like at like number 10. It'd be like right at the top. But A Little Bit of Love is a nice, catchy Weezer song. It's not necessarily anything I want to hear from them, But when they gave this to us and I'm sitting there listening, I'm kind of, you know, doing this with my head and starting to sing along a little bit. And with Weezer, when they can make you do that, then you know they're at least doing something good. I mean, for the criticism that they get, they haven't really had a slump yet. Like, they released OK Computer, Van Weezer last year. Those were great records. And these 3 EPs, I thought there was going to be one. Again, we still have the Winter EP coming out. But I thought at least one of these EPs, I'd be like, oh my god, that was terrible. But I think I've liked every single one of them, and the spring being my favorite. I don't know what it is. I guess it's just the atmosphere of what they were going for, with the EP being more upbringing and cheery and all this kind of stuff and more shiny or whatever, which isn't usually my type of music. But with Weezer, it felt right, and with the song A Little Bit of Love, I can give it credit where it's due. It's a nice little bop here from them, and they have shown no signs of slowing down.
You were the one that I wasn't supposed to lose. I thought I'd have you for...
But here we are with this band here. 3 Days Grace. I talked about them in a video, 7 bands and artists that I'm just basically done with. I did not like this record that came out this year, Explosions. Other than the first track on it, everything else was just kind of bland in its own way and boring, which I know 3 Days Grace with Adam early on had kind of kept a formula, but the thing was, they were evolving from it, they were making it more interesting, and, you know, I kind of thought with this being the 3rd album with Matt Walst as the new lead singer, or should I just say the lead singer, he's not really new anymore at this point, then maybe they found their footing somewhere. Maybe this could, you know, go up a little bit, and it's just continuing this downward slope. And the biggest song that I've heard from this record that gets played on the radio all the time is a song called Lifetime. Now, when I originally heard this song, I didn't like it, for reasons. I just felt like, you know, 3 Days Grace, they've had some great ballads. Again, Never Too Late being one of my favorites. But Matt's voice at first just didn't seem to fit the tone of this song. Now, the more and more listens I've heard from it, because they played on the radio all the time, I realized that Matt's voice isn't necessarily the problem. It's just that for the most part, it's boring. It doesn't do much to the ears to really keep me interested. However, Matt's vocals do pick up the track more than you think. So I decided that no, this wouldn't be on my year-end list for top 10 best or even top 10 worst songs of 2022. It's just kind of in the meh category. It's kind of there, and it's just, I think it's more annoying to me now because it's kind of like how when A Day to Remember had their song Everything We Need. I had no problem with it. I think it did fine as an album finisher on You're Welcome. But with the radio, they just kept pounding it down our throats, and it was just like, alright, look, the song's fine, I don't need to hear it 100 times over, please stop. And thank God they finally have, but for like a year, that was the only A Day to Remember song they would play on the radio, and it's starting to get that way with 3 Days Grace. So it's not necessarily I hate this song, I just think it's being overplayed too much to a point where I'm just going to get fed up with it anyway and probably be okay if I don't go back to it for like a long time, but we'll just have to wait and see. Red Hot Chili Peppers came back with John Frusciante and decided to make not one, but 2 double albums this year. 2 albums that featured 17 tracks each and different sounds in this case. I feel like Unlimited Love was more of what you would expect from the band, but this most recent album, Return of the Dream Canteen, it's something that, like, I can't even put my finger on it why it sounds different. I mean, there's some songs where they use drum machines, which they've never really done before, but that's not really the only thing that's there. It just seemed more relaxing and cozy than, say, Unlimited Love had. And the big track off of Return of the Dream Canteen that they wanted you to hear was a little song like this.
We've only just begun. Funky months are on the run.
This was kind of like the upbeat kind of song, the psychedelic thing they wanted you to get attached to kind of tease it. And to be honest with you, it kind of surprised me when they released this song, because I'm like, wait, you're releasing another album? Wow, okay. It's like, it just blew my mind in this case. And with this song, I gotta say, I like it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think Unlimited Love is still a better record, and I would definitely prefer a single like Black Summer, These Are the Ways. Tip of my tongue just has that fun atmosphere that you want from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and it was like so like a return to form in a way. And even though some people be like, oh, it's too simple, it's too formulaic, they've been doing the same thing where Anthony Kiedis is kind of matching his voice with, you know, the guitars or just the beat overall in general, and I think it just makes it fun. It makes it easy to sing along to, and makes it catchy. And with RHCP, it has to be catchy. If it's not catchy, then they probably didn't make a good song. But Tip of My Tongue, yeah, I would say would probably make my list for my favorite songs of 2022. But again, it's not necessarily my favorite Chili Pepper song that came out this year. It's just been their most popular as of right now. There were a couple that I decided to leave off here. One being the new Blink-182 song, Edging.
No, I leave the broken hearted. Oh no, look at the mess we started. Oh no.
Because in the end, the more and more I listen, I do realize that I like the song, but for me, it's just kind of like, it's still underwhelming in a way, and I still don't know how I fully feel about Tom DeLonge being back in the band. It still feels like they're taking a step back down to me, whereas with Matt Skiba, they were, you know, finding a way to do different things and incorporate his singing voice in there more. But now with Tom DeLonge, it's just like back to square one. So the song, Enough, is fine, but Tom DeLonge did say that there's going to be more serious songs about serious topics on this new record. This song, which will be on the album, was just kind of released first to show people that Blink-182 still had that fun and kind of parody aspect to them. So, you know what? This song, they didn't take themselves seriously, and the song's actually kind of fucking catchy. So I can't sit here and say that I hate it. Would it have made my favorite songs of the year list? Probably not, but it could potentially have ended up in an honorable mention if I was to do it. And I think one of the other ones that I wanted to mention that I didn't put on here, but I kind of want to talk about, is Will of the People by Muse, the album that came out this year, 10 tracks, and yeah, it was very disappointing to me. It was very disappointing to a lot of people. I did like the singles that came out. Killer Be Killed, absolute banger. Compliance, nice little synthy track, something that you probably would have got off their last record, Simulation Theory. And of course, the lead-off single, which was Won't Stand Down, which kind of, you know, combined what they had done in their past couple of records and morphed it together. But the title track, oh my god, it's where it's at. I don't know why so many people, including music critics, hate this song so much. I like the callback Will of the People, like at the beginning. It's just so like catchy. It brings you to your attention, and throughout the whole entire song, it's just like, wow, I don't know what it really is about it, but it's just so catchy to me, and I'm one of the people that will defend this song. I feel like as a kickoff to an album, and as a title track to an album, it really tells you what you're going to expect with the whole thing. And I think as a, not only a title track, but a lead-off track, it really has to do that job of letting you know this is why this song was worthy of being the name of the album, because this is the song that represents what the whole tone of it is going to be. And with Will of the People, the song, it just made me like, it made me dance, it made me sing, it made me do a whole lot of things. It just made me feel good about myself, and I can definitely say that it's a disappointing album, but the singles still bop. Even You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween is kind of growing on me a little bit, so, you know, meh. So yeah, there you go. Those were songs that came out this year that I basically wanted to see if they were going to make my list of top 10 songs of the year, if I was to make it. You guys can tell me in the comments below, what are some songs this year that you've listened to this year that you liked? Would you end up putting them on your own list, or would you just kind of leave them off for other songs and kind of limit it to one track per band? Because I know there's some people that'll be like, oh, my top 10 features 4 tracks from this artist, 3 tracks from this artist, and then 1 from each of these. And it's just kind of like, why would you cluster your top 10 list with so much of the same artist? It just wouldn't make it fun at all, and that's what I kind of did here, was limited it to 1 song per artist, so it didn't feel like I was like trying to like push anything or show bias, because really there haven't been a lot of albums that have had like so many good songs on them. I think this year has just been kind of disappointing for me music-wise. I've heard my great albums, but I haven't heard anything that's made me really go, wow, this is the obvious front runner. Like, it's very, very close. You'll see that when we get to the top 10 best albums of the year. It's very, very close as to, like, how they can be positioned. Like, any of the albums that I mentioned will probably, you know, you can probably flip-flop them, but none of them, like, run away with it at this point in time. And I guess that also makes the year more fun that we have that, because now it's not blatantly obvious as to which album is my favorite. But, yeah, that's been it for me. Stay safe out there. Wear your mask, get vaccinated, and until then, I will catch you all in the next one.